Hello, I'm Father Robert Balazer, the Digital Jesuit, and this is an analog unboxing. But before we get to that, Happy New Year. That's right, folks. We are all officially in 2021. We've left behind that horrible year. You know, it wasn't too long ago that we were joking that 2016 was just a terrible year. And before that, it was 2015 was a terrible year. 2017 was a pretty bad year. 2018, 2019, and then we got to 2020, and we were like, oh, okay, maybe we should stop complaining about how bad the year is because the years seem to be hitting back. Anyways, we are in 2021 now, and I hope, I trust, I pray that all of you brought in the new year in the right way. And by the right way, I mean that you were safe. I mean that you took time for yourself. I mean that you took time to be quiet and just sort of take a look at what it is that you want out of the new year. And one of the best things that we can do is to have that in focus, because it drives us, it pushes us, it makes us understand the things that we should do, the things that we ought to do, the things that are in our best interest if we want to get the things that we have set as goals. Now, for me here, for example, right now, hopefully you can't hear it because I've got some decent noise cancellation, but I can hear the gathering room. We have a parlor upstairs, one floor up directly above me, and the community is watching Zootopia, which I love. I love that movie. And not just that movie, I love gathering with my community. My community is my family. My community is the place where I go for rest, to pray, to talk to people who share my experiences. And, well, since I've gotten back here, I've been in quarantine. And it's been hard because they've been doing movies every night. I hear a lot of laughter. Last night, they had a wonderful dinner that I could smell. I got a little piece afterwards, after everyone was gone. But I get that. I get that because there's a point, especially in a year like 2020, where you take it as a personal responsibility to be pro the safety of others. And so I've isolated myself from the community for the next, 5 days. I'll be in that isolation, and it makes it all worth it. So when I say I hope you're having a great new year, when I say that I hope your 2021 is awesome, I don't mean I hope you can get everything that you want. It means I hope that it'll leave you in a place where you are happy with what you've done, where you're happy with your accomplishments, and you are satisfied with what you have done to move yourself to those goals. All right, that's enough preaching, at least preaching about spirituality and philosophy. Let's talk a little bit about tech, because today we're doing an unboxing of this. This is a Kingston A2000. Now, there's something that you have to understand about the Kingston line of SSDs. KC is their performance brand. So when you see KC in front of something, it means it's the fastest of the fast. They've put all the bells and whistles. A is the value line. I'm not calling it the budget line. I'm calling it the value line. Now, that doesn't mean it's slow. It just means that Kingston has recognized that there are people out there who need different types of SSDs for different types of tasks. We were talking about this a little bit before we started the broadcast. Not all SSDs need to be as blazingly fast as possible. Like, for example, I told my tweets about this before the broadcast. I have 3 SSDs inside of my video editing workstation. I've got the primary drive, which is the super fast drive. That's the PCIe connected, ridiculous speed drive. Now, that's where I put the operating system. That's where I put all my programs. That's where I put my games. Things that I need to load quickly. And then I've also got my asset drive. Now, my asset drive is big. I need it to be big because it has everything. It's a 2 terabyte drive, but it's not the fastest. It's actually SATA connected, and that holds the assets, the videos, photos, the music that I use in my video production. Now, the reason why I don't need that to be super fast is because the only thing that drive has to do is send data to my editor, send data to the rendering device. And really, I'm not even maxing out the SATA bus when I'm doing that. It's that primary drive, which does the work, that really has to be fast. And then there's a third drive, also on a separate SATA bus, that handles the output. And this gives me a nice straight line of storage systems whenever I'm doing a render. So that's what I mean when it doesn't always have to be the fastest. I mean, it would be nice, but we live in the real world where we have to pay things for the gear that we want. And so if you're looking at building a system, you can always build a system that customizes each storage level for what it has to do, you could save a lot of money and you don't actually lose any performance. You might lose some bragging rights, but you know what? You're the smarter builder. Now, when we look at this, when we look at the A2000, what you have to understand is it is an M.2 card. This is not SATA, so you do have to have an M.2 slot. It's 2280, which is the length. They have different sizes of M.2 cards. Now, this particular one, the one that we're going to be giving away, is 500 gigabytes. It's NVMe PCI Gen 3, 4 lanes, which that's just how fast, how quickly, how many input-output lanes it has to push data. I know they're going to Gen 4, and I'm sure Kingston's going to update their line when they become mainstream, but right now Gen 3 is as fast as we go. This is available in 250 gigabyte, 500 gigabyte, and 1 terabyte sizes. The 250 gigabyte is $41. The 500 gigabyte is $51. So there's your sweet spot. And the 1 terabyte is $100. So when I say value, I really mean value. This is a fast drive that doesn't cost the bank. Now inside it, you've got 3D NAND. That's what Kingston has switched their process to, and a hardware encryption engine. Now this is important because a lot of drives do not contain this. A lot of drives will depend on the operating system and hopefully any DSP encryption engine on the motherboard itself, which is actually kind of rare unless you've got an enterprise level product to do the encryption. This can do it on card. Now with that, you get on the 250 gigabyte drive, you get 2,000 megabytes per second read and 1,100 megabytes per second write. Now compare that to what we've got in the SATA realm. The SATA realm, you'd be talking about 550 all the way up to 600 and 550, 600. So this is more than twice as fast, more than 3 times as fast for read, and it's more than twice as fast for write. Now the 500 gigabyte and above, so the 500 and the 1 terabyte module actually go faster. It's 2,200 megabytes per second read and 2,000 megabytes per second write. Now, when I say value, that doesn't mean cheap. That doesn't mean that they're skimping. They actually give you a 5-year warranty on this drive. And you have to remember that at that price, at that performance, they're giving you roughly the same performance for products that cost up to 50, 60, 100% more. Again, one of the things that I like about the Kingston brand is they're always pushing that price point and they're always making sure they give you something that lasts. Now, I was talking a little bit about what SSDs I use in my system. I want to do a throwback back to my Twit days because there was a project that I did for Leo that I really enjoyed. That kind of shows off the proper way to do your SSDs. The Microsoft Surface Studio is a beautiful computer with an incredible screen and innovative mount. But over the last few weeks, one deficiency has become glaringly clear. The storage performance is wanting. The Studio uses a hybrid storage solution with a 1 terabyte 5400 RPM spinning drive cached by a 64 or 128 gigabyte M.2 SSD. Benchmarking our base model with Crystal Disk Mark and a 50 megabyte test file, we averaged about 100 megabytes per second read and 90 megabytes per second write, with a low of 8282 and a high of 135/118. That's just terrible, especially for a $3,000 to $4,000 computer. The benchmarks did go up as we tested larger and larger files because we hit the SSD cache more often. But in real-world use, no amount of caching makes a rotating drive perform close to even a budget SSD. So, an upgrade is in order. But we're not just going to replace the existing M.2 and SATA storage devices. We're going to reconfigure the Studio so it can use both independently, rather than using the M.2 to cache the SATA SSD. We're replacing the 64GB SanDisk M.2 with a 250GB Samsung 850 EVO, and the Seagate 1TB 5400 RPM hard drive with a 960GB Kingston UV400 SSD. Neither of these SSDs are earth-shatteringly fast, topping out at about 540 megabytes per second each. But as the Studio was limited by the Intel i5 CPU and 8GB of memory, we didn't feel the need to spend 30 to 60% more to get ultra-performance parts. Upgrading the drives on the Surface Studio isn't hard, but it does require the removal of 32 screws and bolts in about 50 steps. You don't need many tools for the upgrade. Some tweezers, a T8 and T6 Torx driver, a 5mm hex driver, some sort of nylon pry tool, and maybe a suction cup. We place the Surface Studio face down on a padded surface to get access to the base while protecting the screen. Disassembly starts by removing the 4 rubber feet on the underside of the Studio. Using a pair of tweezers, gently pry the feet up, making sure to keep the adhesive on each foot. These feet hide 4 Torx screws that bolt the cover to the underside of the base, 2 long screws towards the bottom, or the front of the computer, and 2 short screws towards the rear. There are a few internal clips that hold the cover to the base even once the screws are removed, but trying to pry it up might mar the case. Instead, use a suction cup or two to pull the cover straight out. To get to the M.2 and SATA bays, we need to remove the midframe, but you can't take out the midframe without first partially removing the fans. There are a total of 5 Torx screws that hold both fans to the midframe and the motherboard below. However, the fans are connected to the motherboard via sockets that are only accessible after the midframe has been removed. Once the fans are unmounted, let them hang loosely until you can access the connectors. The midframe is tied to the motherboard with 4 large Torx screws on the top right and left corners, and 4 small Torx screws around the perimeter of the midframe. Once you've removed all 8 screws, gently pull out the midframe while holding the fans. Detach the connectors for the 2 fans and the speaker, and now the midframe, speaker, and fans should come free. Once the midframe is out, you have access to the M.2 bay. On our unit, a single Torx screw holds a 64GB SanDisk SSD into a standard socket that will work with any 80mm M.2 card. We're replacing the SanDisk with a 250GB Samsung 850 EVO, but you could get a multi-gigabyte per second part like the Kingston HyperX Predator or the Samsung 960 Pro. But again, considering what else is in this computer, it might look good on benchmarks, but it's probably not going to help the system overall. Replacing the Torx screw completes the M.2 upgrade. To get to the SATA bay, we're going to need to remove the cooling system. This is a little tricky because it's an irregular assembly with 2 heat sinks, heat pipes, and heat spreaders held to the motherboard with 7 Torx screws and 1 mounting post. Start with the 4 screws in the center section. They're spring clipped so they can't be removed even after being unscrewed. Then there are 3 removable screws that mount a heat spreader on top of a processor. Finally, there's a single 5mm hex post above the main heatsink that is the last anchor of the cooling assembly. There's another above the secondary sink that doesn't hold the cooling assembly but needs to be removed eventually, so we might as well get it while we have the hex driver out. With those screws and the posts removed, use a nylon spudger to gently rock the assembly off the CPU and GPU. If all has gone well, you should now have a clean shot at the SATA bay. This Surface Studio used a 1TB 5400 RPM Seagate hard drive held in a frame that is secured to the motherboard by 3 Torx screws and a post on the corner of the drive. We've already removed the posts, so now we just need to remove the 3 Torx screws and the hard drive frame will be ready to unmount. Disconnect the SATA data and power lines, then remove the 4 Torx screws that hold the frame pieces to the drive itself, reinstalling them on the upgrade. The frame has 4 dampeners to reduce the vibration from a rotating drive. We don't need them anymore, but we're going to keep them just in case we need to return everything to factory spec so the unit can be serviced under warranty. Now, it's just a matter of putting everything back where we found it. Connect the SATA data and power connectors to the 2.5-inch SSD and remount the drive frame onto the motherboard with 3 Torx screws. Put the cooling assembly back and hold it in place with the 4 spring-loaded Torx screws, tightening each a little at a time in a crisscross pattern. Don't leave slack in the screws, but also don't over-tighten, as that could damage the components beneath. Re-secure the cooling assembly to the processor with 3 Torx screws, then replace the mounting post above the primary and secondary heat sinks. Reconnect the 2 fans to the motherboard. This is an easy step because each of the connectors is a different size and will only properly fit into its intended socket. Push the fans through the midframe, then snap the midframe back into place. Reconnect the speaker connector, then use 5 Torx screws to reinstall the fan assemblies into the midframe. Using the 4 large and 4 small Torx screws, anchor the midframe back into the case, then do a final tightening of all the screws, again making sure not to over-tighten. Snap the cover back into place, then using the remaining 4 Torx screws, secure it, remembering that the 2 short screws go up top and the 2 long screws attach at the bottom. Finally, replace the feet over the screw ports and reconnect power. You'll need to boot from your recovery media. If you've done everything right, and if you're using a fast USB 3.0 drive for your recovery reinstallation, you should have a fully reinstalled Windows 10 Pro operating system within 10 to 15 minutes. Now, for the fun part, the benchmarking. Remember that the original setup did not benchmark well, especially in the 50 megabyte test. With our new Surface SSD Studio, we benched about 540 megabytes per second read and 500 megabytes per second write. For those keeping score, that's a little bit faster. Now, the funny thing is that those Surfaces were really expensive. I mean, they were $3,000 to $4,000, and even the top end model, which is what Leo bought, had a rotating drive. I don't understand that decision. I know that they've upgraded since, but still, when you are building or upgrading a system, it always pays to take a look at what exactly you need it for. What will the storage be doing? Where will it be located in the hierarchy of your storage plan? And most importantly, how much do you have to spend? Because how much you have to spend is not a trivial thing. It's not, oh, you're poor. It's how can you build it smartly? That's where something like the A2000 comes in really handy. We've come to that point where I think people get excited. We're going to give this thing away. Now, not this particular one. You're going to get a brand new one from Kingston, and hopefully you've had 4 days to figure this out, and everyone has done their entry. We actually had more entries today than we have had in previous days, and this is what it looks like. These are all the entries for the day. Now, the first thing that we have to do, because we're being 100% transparent, is we are going to do a dedupe. So I'm going to go ahead and run a dedupe on all of these fields so that anyone hasn't accidentally gotten 2 or more entries. It happens sometimes because the bot that I wrote for this was really rushed and is not sophisticated at all. But let's go ahead and just do a quick dedupe. Now, remember, you can have multiple entries on different days, just not on the same day. How many do we got? Oh, only 1. All right. Hey, fantastic. I guess that dedupe function kind of works. I got to figure out why there was still 1. So as in days past, this is how it's going to work. I am going to use a random number generator right here. This is just the first one that came on Bing. We're going to give it the rows that are active inside of that Google Doc. So from the very first entry, which has been 34, it's still 34, all the way up to the last entry. And the last entry is, let's see, let's go all the way down. 705. That's Dan Loves Annie. He was the very last person to enter for the day. So 705. Now, to add a bit more transparency into this, I'm not just going to hit generate because some people were concerned that maybe the random number generator was fixed. So instead, I'm going to ask the people on the live stream right now to give me well, they're ahead of me. Doug has given me a number 8, which means I'm going to run it 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The 8th click is going to be the number that is selected. Now that number will correspond with a row in the spreadsheet. That is the winner provisionally. You know how in F1 they talk about provisional poll? That is the provisional winner because he or she has to do something. You see, I'm going to click on their Twitter account. I'm going to send them a DM and they have to respond within 60 seconds. They have to, anything, a character, something within 60 seconds to let me know that they have responded. Then they're officially the winner. If they don't click, if they don't respond, if they're not there, if they're busy and they're out, I'm afraid they're no longer the provisional winner, but that also means that we redraw. So you are stuck with a choice. Remember I talked about being the person who you want to be in 2021? Are you going to be the person who congratulates the winner, or are you going to be the person who says, please don't respond. Please don't respond. I know. Either way, it's fine. I'm not going to judge. So here we go. 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 407. That is our winner. Let's take a look. 407. And that goes to AP Amaro. Okay, so wait, don't hang up yet because AP Amaro is going to have 60 seconds from the moment that I hit the send on the DM. Here we go. Uh-oh. Oh no. Did AP Amaro not follow? Because I'm having trouble DMing if you didn't follow the rules. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Oh, wow, it was a late follow. Okay. So, here we go. Hey, bro. Do you even swag? But seriously. Respond in 60 seconds for free stuff. All right. So, we're going to go ahead and set up the clock, which is right here. He's going to have 60 seconds. 60 seconds to respond. Go. All right, this is those tense times. Yesterday, we had the fastest response ever. It was within 5 seconds. It was amazing. It was wonderful. But let's see if AP Amaro is home. Is AP Amaro in the chat room? Huh. Okay, I don't think so. This might be a redraw. Oh! AP Amaro has pulled it off. Congrats, my bro. Now, I know, it's disappointing. A lot of you wanted an SSD, but don't forget, there's 5 more days of uberGeek Christmas, and in those 5 days, there are 2 SSDs, including. Sorry, I got to go in the goodie bag. We've got a KC600, a 1 terabyte KC600, and my personal favorite, a 1 terabyte KC2500. So if you are upset, if you would like to build up your SSD plant, keep going. Keep entering to the uberGeek days of Christmas. Until then, I am Father Robert Balliser, and from the bottom of my heart, I wish you all the best of years. I hope your 2021 is thrilling. I hope it's fantastic. I hope it's successful. But most importantly, I hope it makes you happy. I hope it makes you a better person. Until tomorrow, remember, there's no uberGeek without you.